What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the CrazyFaceUno Podcast, where everyone has a story and everyone's story matters. What's your story? If you'd like to support the show and help us tell more stories like the one you're about to hear, please visit thecrazyfaceuno.com today. There, you can order items from our online store and donate. As always, I'm your host, Shane McNeely, and boy, are you in for a treat today. It is my honor and privilege to introduce my guest today. Please welcome Elliott Usrey. Welcome, Elliott. Oh, he's like, hey,
hey.
How's it going, man? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, we just to fill our listeners in, we are high school. We went to high school together.
Yep.
I would say we're high school friends, but you know what? We really didn't run around in circles too much. But because we went to such a small school, everybody kind of knew each other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to separate like where that line is, you know, sometimes because you run around like just such a small school, such a small place that we end up around each other at some point in time in your high school, you know, career.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, like, you wrestled too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wrestled and played soccer. So
yeah, so like, you know, I think we had a lot of the same friend group, sports and stuff like that too.
Yeah, like Zach and Kevin and some of those guys for sure.
Definitely.
Well, we were just talking before the show, and we haven't talked in like 15 years or so. It's been a good while. Yeah. I graduated in 2006 from high school, so 2006, and I think you were a year before me, right?
Yeah, I was 05. Yep.
So yeah, it's probably been at least 05, 06 since the last time we probably chatted or were around each other.
I don't think we really saw each other in college.
Yeah, no. And I haven't really been back into the old Sullivan, Indiana area, and since our 10-year reunion. My wife and I went to that for my 10-year reunion, but since then I haven't really been to Sullivan, so it's been a while.
Really, you haven't even visited since then?
Not really. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I think 2016 would have been the last time I was in Sullivan. My mom doesn't live there. My dad doesn't live there. My dad lives in Indianapolis now, and my mom lives in Peru, Indiana, a little bit further north. And so there's just not a lot of, a good reason for me to go down there and make that trip.
You know, my family, there really isn't any.
Yeah.
There isn't any reason now. No, I try to go as much as I can. It's like I try to go like twice a year.
Cool.
Because my mom and dad are still there, and then
nice.
A lot of my close friends, and then I got a lot of friends in Terre Haute. And then my sister and brother-in-law and my 3 nephews live in Franklin, Indiana. So up in like the Greenwood suburbs kind of area. So I've got a lot of family around. So I try to make it a point to get up there as much as I can. Cool.
I think of Franklin. There's a couple. You mentioned wrestling. I always think of a couple of the wrestlers that I know from that wrestled at Franklin. Yeah.
Nice.
That's what I always think of. So, their faces popped in my head as you were saying that. But that's cool. Yeah, Indiana. It's a place that I appreciate, but I'm happy to be exploring the United States and the world and kind of getting outside of that little Sullivan bubble in so many ways. Yeah,
I mean, I think I'm definitely proud to be from Indiana, or at least raised in Indiana. I was born in Canada.
Sure. Cool.
Brampton, Ontario.
Nice.
Outside of Toronto. It's actually itself a pretty big city, like 350,000-ish, I'd say.
Nice.
But I think the cool thing about being down in Texas, especially like Austin, running into somebody that's from Indiana, whether it's like far away from where we grew up, it's kind of cool because it's a small state, and
totally.
And, I think it's cool when people move here because it's not like even though like Massachusetts is small, it's like a lot of people move here from Massachusetts, but it's, you know, I think like it doesn't seem like a ton of people move here from Indiana, so I think it's cool whenever you run into somebody like that. Yeah,
I agree. I love running into people just randomly. You're like, oh yeah, like my favorite thing is like I've lived in such like small towns all my life until I graduated college and kind of went off on my own. But then I really decided to kind of congregate towards the cities. But yeah, it's always interesting when you're like somebody from Illinois or Indiana, where I've lived and where I kind of grew up. Oh, you're good. It's just interesting because they always ask, you know, like, well, where are you from? What part? And you're like, Sullivan? You ever heard of that? Or, you know, people are always like, no, I don't really know what that is.
Oh, yeah. You got to say at least like Terre Haute, and that's a long shot. And a lot of people, or Bloomington's good. You can say like IU, or, you know, and people will get it. But yeah, that's about it in our area, right?
Yeah, totally. But it's easy to describe because I just go like follow the state on the left side, you know, all the way down, and when it starts to squiggle, that's Sullivan. You know,
I haven't heard that one. I like that one. I'll have to use that.
You know, Michigan, they always use the hand thing. You know, so I don't know. It's funny. Well, you kind of touched on it. You currently live in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
And you know, part of us getting kind of reconnecting before you came on the show was we were talking about, you know, kind of your life now a little bit, and you kind of brought up who you've been working for the last 10 years. And because of the current state of our country and the world right now, you know, with COVID-19 and everything, you're in an interesting spot. But I would love to kind of, you know, at least chat a little bit about, you know, your time in Austin and some of the work you're doing. Do you mind filling us in?
Yeah, so the thing that brought me here 10 years ago was an internship for South by Southwest, the music, film, and interactive conference and festivals. And it was such a cool opportunity, and I was very blessed to have my parents allow me to move that far away, you know, for a semester of school. And I guess to backtrack a little bit, to get that internship, I knew a guy that I went to ISU with. We were both in the music business administration program, and he was a few years older than me. And he and a group of other people in our in that major came down one year and volunteered for South by and had a great time. And then he and a couple others came down the next year, I believe, and interned for the company. And then he ended up getting a position full time, and eventually he was ready to take on an intern. So at that time, my advisor at ISU told me about it, and you know, it was kind of weird. I was in a tough spot because music business, it's music business, the actual degree, you know, it's an actual business degree, but you know, it has all the music theory, the history, the ear training, and all of that, and you have to have weekly lessons and on your primary instrument. So it was really such a rich major, but I was kind of scared about where I could go and use that. And it seemed like at the time that not everybody, but a majority of the people were flocking towards music merchandising. And I didn't really want to do that, you know. That was it was such a fair thing to do, especially with going through music school and having that knowledge. And a lot of those internships actually were paid. And honestly, there was one that I was about to go through with, and it was in Jacksonville, Florida. Nice. And it was I forget it was a music store, but I can't remember the name, but it would have been a paid internship. And I just, you know, that's not where that's not what my heart wanted, you know?
Yeah.
And, about that time, this position came up, and you know, I really talked to my parents about it, and they, especially my dad, just kind of did some research, and he said, you're not going to get an experience like this anywhere else. So they helped me move down here, and I had my internship. And thankfully, for our music business program, the internship is the only class that you take that semester. So I didn't have to worry about tests or studying or anything. It was full-time dedication. So I was in the office at South by the full time that the employees were, and just kind of worked my way around. Whenever I was in that position, I was doing I was helping with the volunteer coordination, because it just takes thousands of volunteers on top of the staffers to make this 2-week-long event happen. And so I got a lot of experience talking to people and helping kind of listen to what kind of what their interests were in music-wise, because when you're placing them in a volunteer position, you kind of just don't want to just throw them somewhere because they're not going to have a good experience. They're not going to have fun. And then if they're not having a good time, then they're probably not going to do a good job.
Right.
And, that way, and nobody wins. So the good thing about my internship position there was I was able to kind of talk to these people and kind of get their idea of where they would want to be placed in a volunteer spot, specifically what kind of venue, what kind of music they like that. So that was a lot of stuff leading up to the event. And then during the event, I helped with, guiding these people where they're going and things like that. So after that internship, which was just a lot of fun. I mean, I had a blast. And so that was from January through, I think through like the beginning of May of 2010. I moved back to Indiana, and I worked at Staples for a couple of months. And I actually had, what's the button? They had the button, didn't they? What's the button?
Oh yeah, it's the help button or the.
Like what was? Did it say help?
No, it's like something else. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I don't know why. I think it was just starting to become popular whenever I was working there. Sidetrack, but no. I had talked to my boss at the time, the boss at South by, about not the guy that hired me, one of the guys that was actually in charge, and he gave me a verbal verbal recognition that he wanted to hire me. It was just a matter of looking for the right time. And mind you, this was 10 years ago before there were so many people on staff there. And we were in a different building, actually a series of buildings. And, so it was kind of tight. People didn't just get hired right off the bat, and they didn't get hired for no reason. So, fast forward to like August or something, I get an offer letter and I moved down to Texas. I started on 8, 9, 10 full time. That was
it's a good way to remember that.
August 9th of 2010. So that was my first full time status, and I was there until March 9th. Isn't that kind of ironic? March 9th, 10 years later, unfortunately, they had to make a decision to lay off a large portion of the full-time staff, me being one of them. And, I obviously I don't have any ill will toward them for doing that, because that's what, and they were one of the first people to have to do that. From then on, it just started trickling. Other businesses were doing that, and so it just became very apparent that was the norm. So in those 10 years, though, I mean, I had just some of the best moments, ever. I got to meet some of the coolest, noteworthy people, and got to make, lifelong friends, people that will be my friends till the day I die. And just a really kind of tight knit. It really was, you know, and still is a lot of a family
Sure.
aspect to it. So my job specifically was to when I first started, it was kind of actually just more tech stuff, but I was in the music festival department working with the bookers and everything. And then it had kind of evolved over time to become more of an artist support kind of manager.
Sure.
My official title at the end was tech specialist, which I was still doing a lot of tech things, but
Nice.
but the overall kind of role that I was latched onto was to help our artists, aka the bands, the people playing the shows, and we invite almost 2,000. We had been inviting almost 2,000 artists all the years that I was working there, and you know, as the months lead up to the event, there's a lot of things that these artists need to do in order to get ready to come down here and play. You know, especially a lot of them coming from overseas. They're you know, we have to make sure that they're able to come over here with the visa, and you know, we didn't get any kind of like specific in that, but our general help, you know, just for our knowledge, knowing that they had their visa was the main goal. To know that they're going to be able to come over, and surprising, a lot of people just weren't aware how or aren't aware how visas work. They want to come over and perform, and there's a lot of different things that go into it that I don't need to bore with.
But it's quite the process, though.
But it's part of the process, and I got to learn about so many countries, so many, you know, the culture of all of these different people from all over the world. I mean, we averaged like 50 to 60 different countries represented by the artists every year. And
that's so cool.
And when I say like artists, I mean like the like a band is like a group of people most of the time, unless you're just solo. So when I say 2,000 artists, I'm talking about like 10,000 individual people essentially that you're trying to help day to day, just kind of get to where they need to be, sign their performance agreement, upload photos to our website and their MP3 and where people can hear their music, and you know, anything like that. And so it's surprising to a lot of people that we start the whole process in the middle of the summer. And June is like late June is like when we open our applications, and we did have I'm sorry I'm saying do and did.
No, you're good, man. It's confusing. We get it. No, I think everybody's gonna understand, and it's hard for you because it's like, where do you stand right now?
And it's like, because they still do
exist, and they exist. It's just not operational right now, and you're not there.
So and so I think that was one of the best things, is that they have an open application system that anybody who's anybody can apply, as long as they have somewhere like a link to where they can list their music and you know, have something kind of to represent, and all of that is listened to by the staffers. I did my fair share of listening over the years, and it was fun and kind of grueling at times, but you know, that and that part about it I think was great, because it's like, you know, being able to just kind of be exposed to all these different kinds of musics that I, you know, may not have listened to before, and you know, may not listen to ever again, but you know, at least I was exposed to it. And you know, I think like I said, the international exposure I think was a lot of fun. And I mean, you know, I went to school for music. I did a lot of studying in music, so I wasn't ignorant to like world musics and like different kind of instruments that people, you know, in the Western ear might not appreciate. But to kind of hear like a modern day version of it, and a lot of these people are kind of I feel like a lot of them are kind of taboo for playing music in some of the countries. but I kind of went on a tangent there.
You're good, man. You're good. No worries. I love it. I'm happy to listen. I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that like I worked. I don't know if you're familiar with Invisible Children. But
yeah. I remember it through you.
Yeah. So I worked in Invisible Children, and it's a lot of similarities. You know, it's different. The outcome and like the thing you're working towards is very different. Obviously, you know, you're trying to put on a music festival, but I don't think that people quite understand the moving pieces that go on behind the scenes to some of those things. And you know, you talking about it's the simple things from visas, and visas is like a big thing, you know, but like there's just so much information that you need in order to accommodate your artists. And from you know, some of them have different things that they require in their contracts to the what they want in the green room to, you know, I would love to.
Whenever they want something in the green room, we say, okay, no. That's the blanket answer at South by. I mean, like you got to, because like some of the venues don't even have a green room, you know.
Cool. Yeah, that's funny.
And that's not what it's about. It's about exposing the media and the industry and you know, new fans to these artists that are up and coming, and the bigger artists in a small, like, you know, small venue, and having that kind of intimate experience in a lot of ways. So yeah.
What's if you can share, what's something that would be unique that was a weird request from an artist? Anything unique that sticks out to you?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think, because we've seen a lot of writers, and I'd say a lot of that stuff would usually go like directly to one of the bookers, which I didn't actually program book any shows. I worked directly with the bookers.
Sure. So they already had that information and then kind of pass it on to you, probably.
Yeah. And I mean, gosh, I'm trying to think, and all this stuff blends together.
I've heard of stuff like, you know, people requiring a new pair of like Yeezys, or, you know, stuff like that, and like like just wild stuff, or like the classics where it's like whatever their favorite whiskey is, or, you know, their alcoholic beverage, or, you know, whatever those types of things. But
I can't think right now of that.
No worries. If you think of anything along the way,
I'll
jump in there.
And it'll probably be in the middle of a rant at some point.
Perfect. Even better. That's super fun. That's awesome. I know my progression at Invisible Children was very similar to yours. Like, I came in as a full-time volunteer. I really, you know, I got what was it, like $200 a month, like a stipend, you know? But outside of that, like, I had to raise my money. So for the first 2 years of me working at Invisible Children, or volunteering at Invisible Children, I wasn't making money. I was just living, you know, and I was going along and doing my thing. And then it's that progression of like finding your place and finding your way and making.
Because you loved what you did.
Yeah, exactly. And having those opportunities to, I don't know, just to, I don't know if the right phrasing, but like make a name for yourself, you know, air quotes. Like, it's something that feels good, and it feels good to like work for something that you want to work for and that you like respect and enjoy, you know. And I mean, for you coming out and going straight into South by Southwest and what it's turned into over the last, you know, probably since you started, you've seen that progression of really its expansion and its growth and what it's.
Oh my gosh!
It's almost a household name now. You know, I mean, most people know what South by Southwest is, so that's really cool. Yeah,
and that's totally correct. I think you know, just in the past 10 years, Austin, like everybody knows, Austin has been the booming city.
It's Austin weird, right?
So much bigger. It's insane. And the area where I live, I'm just like a couple miles south of downtown. And I'm walking distance from the old Broken Spoke, the famous bar that has like a lot of a history of country artists. And Garth Brooks actually played a surprise show there whenever we had him at South by. He played our outdoor stage for free to the public, and then he did this little pop-up acoustic show by himself. at this little bar, you know, walking distance from my place. But here's the broken spoke, and to the next of it, there's condos, and on the other side, there's condos. When I moved here, it was the broken spoke and little like garages and other things that are on that same level. And that's the only original thing that's there. And it's interesting that a lot of other areas. I live off of South Lamar, which is a big main road that goes through the town. Sure. And in South Lamar is becoming all of that. It's just growing up, you know, just as much as downtown. These things are like the condos are popping up and everything, and a lot because of South by, and a lot of people don't realize that this was supposed to be the 34th year. Wow. You know, people don't realize how long it's actually been around, and how they've grown up and struggled to be where they are over the years. Sure. And so, you know, a lot of people would you know, just ask me like how do you have a full-time year-round job doing something like that? And to get back
no idea
I was talking about is, I mean, especially for me, like a lot of the tech stuff, I was mainly in charge of keeping our application up to date, like making sure that the questions are up to date, you know, changing 2019 to 2020 and this and that, and getting ready for applications opening. Yeah. And helping with the processing of the applications and a lot of the general support. And thankfully, the last few years I had somebody else that was helping me with a lot of that, who was hired. So thankfully, I wasn't pulled in so many directions as I used to be. And, you know, on site during the event, it was just kind of keeping up with whatever fire is going on and helping.
Always something.
Fires. Yeah. And I mean,
2 weeks of fires. That's pretty much what it is. And that's events, you know. I've worked so many big events throughout like my last, you know, several years. That it's so funny. Like, I love that. I love that build up to an event, you know, and a lot of people don't even realize, like, a year turnaround for a big event. I mean, you guys have the base, you know, for it. Yeah. So you can turn it over. Like you're saying, it's the taking materials from the year before and then turning them into something for the next year, but you have to adjust them. You have to make them different, and you have to change them. I mean, there's some companies, I mean, Invisible Children, we did the same thing. Some of our bigger events were a year long, or, you know, there's some other organizations that I've worked for events that it's been like a 2-year process of putting these big events on. And it's a slower process, and maybe you bring people along at different stages of that. But there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes that people don't realize when just any event, from the smallest things. And I mean, you think about, I don't know if you've been a part of, or, you know, planning my wedding with my wife. And I'd done events before, you know, I'm like, this will be easy. This will be a piece of cake, but it's never easy. And even the smallest events like that, like something so simple, it's like, now compound that times, you know, 2,000 artists, and then staff on top of that. They have to take care of all of that, from transportation to, you know, just communication to organization to, there's so much that goes into stuff like that.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's definitely the main thing. And I mean, and you talk about just one showcase, which is the traditional showcase for a venue during the music festival is 6 bands. First band starting at 8 o'clock, last band going on at 1 a.m. And so if music is done by 1:40, every band has a 40 minutes time slot. And then the time in between is for changeover for the instruments. A lot of the bands have a backline that they share. So they'll share like a drum kit or an amp or something. But you know, the volunteers helping with the loading the equipment and actually stage managing, and our staff that work on production, you know, moving equipment around and
it's so much. I know how much work goes into it.
And here's the other thing is we have like all the sales and the sponsorship and the housing department. Oh my gosh, those are like, you know, some of the hardest workers. Though, you know, between food and lodging, that's that's what'll get like people riled up the most, you know.
Yeah.
They you know, they gotta stay where they want to stay, and they want to stay when they want to stay, you know. And so having to deal with that day to day, and in that environment, you pretty much have to do it like first come first serve. So you've got an order of a process. So yeah, props to them for a lot of their work. And, the registration department, the people that help sell the badges, you know, it's just insane. The art department, there's so much stuff in house that's all the art and everything, and video editing, and it's just
the whole thing. Yeah.
The social media, the marketing, all of that.
Yeah.
You know? So
and like editing, I mean, those edits start probably taking place like instantly. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like they're, you know, part of the different events that I've been a part of with, you know, whether it's a speaking event like that, or, you know, where they've got artists that come in. But when you're recording all that, I mean, you have to take your discs, you have to go and you switch it out. You hand it over to the production team, and they start, you know, processing that. And if you've ever uploaded anything to YouTube, you know, processing is quite a battle. It's it's not an easy thing. It takes some time. So
one of my best friends was a video editor, and he actually started full time a month before me in 2010. Wow. A month or two, I can't remember, but he unfortunately was one of those laid off too. But I remember times he would have to let something render like that, and it would just he couldn't do anything. I mean, no. He'd be like, let's go grab lunch or something while this, you know, finishes. But yeah, and to add on that, you know, I was talking about the music festival because that's specifically where I was working all these years. And we're all, you know, same staff, but we also have the interactive conference and the film festival. The film festival is such a well-oiled machine. It has so many cool movies. There were so many movies that were set to be premiered there this year. Their big one was going to be the King of Long Island. Is that right? The new what's his name? Pete Davidson.
I don't know, man. I'm not sure.
Anyway, there's a lot of previews for it right now. And that was supposed to be like their big premiere, but
well, and a lot of those, you know, even, you know, this is how it's affecting you, but it's also affecting like the industry, you know, all the whole industry, because like you said, some of these smaller bands, this is the way that they make it, you know, this is how they get on, this is how they pay for their, you know, their life. And
the spring and summer festival industry, and potentially even the fall for 2020 has just been decimated. I mean, South by was the first, like literally, because we're the first, we set the tone every year. We're the first major thing in the first quarter of the year, and have, you know, we set a lot of the tones for these festivals, and we show who's going to be like the next buzziest artist, and you know, who's gonna blow up like Lizzo, you know, like she's been around forever, but and she had played South by a few times before, but this past year, 2019, she just you know. Yeah,
her stock raised.
And then she played, you know, ACL Festival, Austin City Limits Music Festival, and they didn't, you know, because they had booked her before she kind of blew up. Like they had her in this kind of small stage area. So anyway, but yeah, like you said, the festivals and all live music and other events. I mean, we're just now like I guess sports are in Texas are. Like next week or the next 2 weeks, the professional sports can start using their facilities or something like that, but they can't have any fans around, and it's like you know, like why open up at all if you're gonna half-ass these things? And I feel bad for the restaurants, because a lot of them are like, they're like, yeah, I want to go back to work, but I don't want to risk it, because, you know, one foul play and it sets you back harder than you were. And how are you, you know, you got to keep your lights on and your electricity when you got 25% capacity allowed.
I don't know, man.
It's like,
I just don't know. Like it's getting more worrisome, you know, as time goes on. And, it's just so much. It's so hard to know even what's happening right now, you know, with everything going on. What do you trust and what do you listen to? You know, I mean,
yeah, exactly.
There's like, for every, you know, stance or article on one topic, there's something on the complete opposite end of the spectrum right next to it. And it's like, so what do you do? You know? Yeah, right. I know. We reverted back. I was telling, you know, I've talked to my wife about this a ton, because when it first started happening, you know, I felt, me personally, like I just wanted information. I just wanted to know. I wanted to be informed. I wanted to be up to speed on things, you know. And now as it goes on, it's like, I'll just avoid it and hope that at some point in time I'll have the correct information, and I'll do my due diligence and do my part, and then hope for the best, you know, because I don't know. I mean, I feel like, you know, us as young people as well, statistically, I think we're in a pretty good situation, you know, but at the same time, like, there's so many unknowns even with the virus in and of itself. So like, who wants to mess around with any of that? And yeah, I don't know. It's just a hard time for everybody. And I really feel for everybody that's out of a job or laid off or furloughed or whatever it is, you know. I mean, I have so many friends that are being affected by this now, and you being one of them, to, you know, people in the restaurant industry, to people just not able to go to work because it's just not feasible for their job. It's tough. It's not a place that anybody thought we'd be in this year. I mean, that's for sure. And yeah, I still have hope, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that I'm a little disappointed in how, you know, things turned out as things have gone on. I really was really hopeful that, I don't know, that we would be a little kinder. We'd be a little nicer to each other, and we'd treat each other with a little bit more kindness, and we'd unify, you know, and come together. And I'm disappointed in some ways, you know, and I think that I'm still hopeful. I think that there are some people that this has been a wake up call, and, you know, maybe it is something that changed a few perspective, and it only takes a couple, you know, for things to change, I guess. But it's sad. It's just a crazy time. I don't even know what to think. I mean, it still feels surreal, and it's felt surreal since it started, you know, and that's what's so like crazy about it. So
yeah, I completely agree, man. And to be honest, I actually haven't been out that much since, like,
yeah, me either.
March 14th was the last day that I was around a group of my friends, and that was the last day that people were allowed to be around each other.
Yeah.
In Austin, at least, and I think it was like the next day or that Monday.
I've been somewhere around that.
Yeah,
I'd been somewhere around that time as well. Yeah, we were, you know, I'd get together. Still kind of questionable at the time, but I was getting together with people, you know, small groups still. I mean, we played beach volleyball, and, you know, 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 or whatever it was. We never big groups, but we're just like, well, till they tell us we can't, like, let's just keep doing it. We're being safe. We're being careful. We're not, like, you know, I mean, we're still somewhat social distancing, even though we're touching the ball every but I don't know. Yeah, we were like, we're doing more, you know. I'm washing my hands. I'm being careful about touching my face, my mouth, my, you know, whatever. But I don't know. I mean, shoot.
And I remember
since then, it's just like stuck at home, and
And I remember exactly, like, I was with my friend John, and he's from the UK, and he comes in and helps with South by seasonally. So he'll come in the end of the year, and then stay through the event and leave, like, you know, in April or May. And he does other festivals overseas and stuff like that. Really, really awesome character, really cool dude. And been friends for a few years since he started working there. And unfortunately, you know, he had no job because he was part-time or seasonal. So no event means no job. So he had to go back to the UK pretty quick. And that was a weird time because we're all used to being able to, like, hang out more after the event is over and you know, just kind of unwinding. And here he is not knowing if he's going to be able to fly out of the country and get back home. And if he is able to, then he's got to go like soon. So pretty much like that was the Saturday, and it was just he and I sitting there, and this place was packed. It's not far from my place down in South Austin, a really popular joint with really good beer selection and food trucks and a lot of outdoor seating. And we're just sitting there, and there's this guy walking around with the Clorox and a rag, and he's wiping down like the rails and stuff and the knobs, and he just keeps doing that, and it's like that's just the beginning of it. We're like, wow, this is interesting. It's like, that's not going to take care of everything with all these people around,
right?
And eventually, we had it was a gathering. We had a bunch of friends come and join us and hang out, and that was so much fun. I'm glad that was my last, my last outing, was that I had a bunch of friends around me, and a lot of them were affected by this. Some of them that I worked with at South by that were unfortunately let go, and it was kind of a cool send off. But then John had to leave like 2 days later. I haven't seen him since then. So and I haven't really gone to the grocery store or like Target. I've got a Target right next door to me, and I haven't gone there much. I've gone maybe like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, same. Like maybe, I think we went this last weekend, like the 4th time, maybe. Like,
I've only been once since the masks have been required.
Mandatory, yeah.
And so whenever I went, and that was just like the other day, and I went out to the grocery store because I had to pick up a couple of things. Is mostly I get stuff ordered on Amazon Prime, Prime Now, Prime Now, 2-hour delivery. Groceries, everything you need. And
it's convenient.
It is. And obviously,
I'm more afraid of like the bite squads and like the food delivery services.
Yeah.
The DoorDash, because man,
I don't
it's created a real problem for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't do that as much. It's more of like the actual packaged stuff that I like, and my mom, bless her heart, sent me a giant package of Omaha steak products. So I've got a freezer full of like burgers and pork chops and chicken, and oh my gosh, it's been so great. And my girlfriend is such a great cook, so it's all working out.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I went, I saw these people like with masks for the first time in real life, and myself, and I was like hard to breathe, and and I was wearing
breath smells, you're like,
exactly. I'm wearing my glasses, which my glasses are very old prescription, which is why I'm not wearing them. Like my little
I love it
up here. These glasses are from 2008, and I haven't had new ones since because I wear contacts, and I need new contacts. So
I know. I'm right there with you. I've got old glasses, and I'm like running out of contacts, and
and I'm not about to go have somebody blow air in my eye during this time. So
nah. Yeah, I'll pass.
No, thanks. That's not that's at least fun thing to do anyway. I have very sensitive eyes, and they water very easily. So,
yeah, my whole thing is the reason I haven't got my eyes checked is I don't want them to be dilated.
Yeah,
I know it only takes like a few hours, but a few hours.
I'm serious. They have been my whole life. I take in too much light. I have to have sunglasses on outside all times.
That's awesome. Well, before we transition out of maybe, current day, would you mind maybe telling us a few things here? One, I would love to hear maybe like your favorite genre of music, or the one that you like feel most connected to or enjoy the most. Maybe a band or something that you're listening to, or that's maybe under the radar. If you've got something like that, that'd be awesome. And then up to you, and however much you can speak and want to speak to it, but maybe what kind of where your head's at with the future, and maybe with what you've been told about, the future by South by Southwest, if anything. Again, I know that I want to be respectful of you and your relationship with South by Southwest, so please, answer that at your own, discretion. But what's maybe, let's start with your artists and music genres that you're interested in.
Well, it's really funny whenever, I mean, loaded question, of course. But whenever somebody asks me about like
plenty of those coming down the line, just wait.
Yeah, that's fine. And I mean, you know, like a lot of the times when I think of an artist that I really like, that I feel like they just don't have much recognition. They're called the Antlers.
Okay.
I think they're from Brooklyn, but I think it's 3 dudes. Just an absolutely beautifully sounding band, and
cool.
If I were to tell you which thing to listen to first, it would be they have an EP. It's only 4 songs. It's called Undersea, and it's on Spotify. It's on everything. But those 4 songs are they're just so atmospheric, and you know, from the cover of the EP, the artwork, to the sound of it, it really makes you feel like you are
cool.
undersea, just kind of floating along. And I think one of my favorite things about them is that they have a trumpet player that kind of loops these really long trumpet tones and just kind of build them. And he's
cool.
One guy, and he's got like all these loops going on, and by the time, you know, the song is at its peak, you've got this just layer of horn sounds, you know, from nothing, essentially, at the beginning.
That's cool.
It's a very emotional band. There's an album that they did called Hospice, and it's a
emotional for probably obvious reasons.
And it's a concept album, so all the songs are related to this lady that's dying, and there's a nurse, this hospice nurse, that's working with her, and it's kind of coming from her perspective, and you know, kind of the relationship that they have, and how the cancer patient kind of resents her at first, and they eventually you know, get along, and this person all the while is taking care of this, you know, person who's dying. And wow. I'm telling you, I'm almost getting emotional thinking about that album.
Yeah,
it's one of the best things, I'll tell you. Like, you know,
cool. I'm excited. I wrote that down.
She's nearby. Listen to it with your wife. You know,
yeah,
it's amazing. But just a quick get into them. That Undersea EP for sure is so good. Cool. Then they had a pretty commercially successful album called Burst Apart with more kind of like standard songs. You know, when somebody asks me about them, like, or about a band that they should kind of know about, that's who I go to. And it sucks because they haven't had anything in like 5 years or something.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm really, really antsy to
see something new come out. Huh?
Yeah. And I've only seen them like twice live, I think.
Have you heard of Yaysayers?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yaysayer?
That's like what pops in my mind with like the horns, but I don't know why. Like just a unique sound, or like kind of in my head, but I've never listened to them, so I have no idea what they sound like. But I don't know why that was the one that popped in my head.
Yeah, I actually, you know, they're definitely one that I'm pretty sure they've been to South by multiple times.
Have they?
Yeah, that's the other thing, is like all the thousands of bands, you know, over 10 years that I've, you know, seen the names of and everything. It's just, you ask me like who's supposed to play like this year, or who played like yeah.
Just a mesh of names in your head. Yeah. I'm sure.
So yeah, there's definitely like one that I've always seen, and they're always on like the festival list and everything, but I actually haven't listened to them either.
Yeah, they're unique. They're a weird sounding. I don't know. That's the best way to describe it. It's just a very unique sound. But anyway, yeah. What kind of what do you subscribe to? Like a specific kind of genre of music?
I don't know if I necessarily like subscribe to one, but like it's really interesting. It just depends on where I'm at.
That's how I am. That's how I am too.
And I know it's like
I'm a little all over the place for sure.
So cliche. It's so cliche to say.
I know.
I listen to everything. then I mean, like, but
you grew up in Sullivan, or like you lived in Sullivan for a while, so I know you got a little country every once in a while. You probably, like you got some country roots. You got roots,
I love country. I love Willie Nelson, especially here in Austin. I love Willie. Sturgill Simpson, who's not necessarily country, but he's good. Really, that last album,
that soulful sound.
Yeah. It's like that old soul country. But I really like the old beachy stuff. Beach Boys are pretty much my number one. Right there with the Beatles. It's like obvious, everybody says that kind of stuff. But honestly, the Beach Boys for me, it's like a lot of that stuff came from one guy's mind, and Brian Wilson. It's just insane to me that he had all of that in his head, and pretty much built up that surf and car movement of the early 60s, and then went on to do one of the best albums of all time with Pet Sounds. And then after Pet Sounds, it was like that's when he kind of started being more recluse and just kind of making music instead of performing music out live. And a lot of those albums after Pet Sounds were really good. They had like some really rich songs and rich harmonies that it just didn't get the radio play because it wasn't the same stuff, And there's the whole famous like feud between him and his cousin Mike Love, and how Mike Love wanted to keep to the formula and all that kind of stuff. I highly recommend Love and Mercy, the movie, if you haven't seen it. It's Paul Dano plays Brian in the Pet Sounds era, and then John Cusack plays him in like the present day, which is like the 80s at that time.
Cool.
Really good film. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross actually helped with the scoring of that, so it's kind of dark, but Beach Boys, so it's interesting.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah, I wrote that down. I'll check that out.
Yeah.
What has been, or as we kind of like look to, maybe as you look to the future a little bit, or start thinking about that, it's definitely something I'm assuming that's on your mind, something you're thinking about and potentially a little anxious about and stressed about. But what do you know, like what's, if you can say, again, like whatever you can say, but what's kind of the next steps, what are you waiting for from South by Southwest, and kind of what are you looking at for your next steps as for you individually, Elliott?
Well, for the company, I can be honest, I don't know.
Cool.
And even though I have really good friends that still work there, it's not something that I feel like is necessarily worth asking them, because they still work there. It's I don't want to really kind of dig up that kind of unnecessary conversation. What I do know is that they still have like all the years of rich history. They have backlogs of video and audio and things like that I think that they can use their social media to their advantage with, and photos and things like that, and use that social media. They the film festival worked with Amazon recently to feature a lot of the films that were going to be at the South by Film Festival on Amazon Prime Video, and I believe they opened that to the public, so you didn't actually have to have your Prime account to view those, and that was for a week, I think, for that free version. And I'm not sure. I have to check in if those films are still on there to stream whenever you have a service. I have to check.
No worries.
But I think that was really cool. It was neat seeing one of my friends who works in the film festival introduce one of the features whenever you clicked on it on Amazon. So that was cool. And I just honestly don't know. And to be honest, there's no reason to speculate. And I'm not going to. And
that's cool.
That place gave me 10 years of just absolute glory. And I mean, to be able to get into that right after college, using my degree
So cool.
to the fullest, music business degree. What else do I do? Go into the music business. And I mean, a lot of other people weren't as fortunate, because that was after the big downfall of 2008 and everything. So, I've just been blessed all these years, and I'm honestly pretty happy with how the unemployment compensation has been easy right now. With
Good.
They've lifted all the requirements. Not having to get a job interview and like 5 times a week or something right now, because nobody's interviewing anybody.
Yeah.
So I'm able to still have money, and that's the main thing right now for me. It's important that I'm just able to pay my rent. To
live.
Exactly, and that's the main thing that I think a lot of people are struggling with. It's just like, why the heck can't we live without paying so much money? Like, I know. Why do we have to pay all this money? I live in a small apartment. I live in an efficiency apartment, and I'm not downtown or anything like that.
Sure, yeah.
I'm pretty close, but I'm still paying out the ass for this little thing, and I've been here like in the same apartment for like 8 years, I think. In this one, maybe 9 years. I can't remember.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm so grateful for, to be completely honest. I mean, my wife's working from home now, and we're still working, we're still doing our thing, and not much has changed for us, and I feel very grateful. I feel very blessed to be in that situation. I mean, there's so many people across the country, across the world, that just aren't in that same situation, and I'm very blessed, and I'm happy to hear that you're doing okay, and you're able to grocery shop and pay your rent.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to me that like this time of year usually is kind of the post South by depression for a lot of people.
Sure.
Because we work on this thing year round, and then it happens, and then all of a sudden it's over.
Yeah,
it's like,
you pour so much of your blood, sweat, and tears into it for
Yeah, and even though you're working on the one for next year, you're just like, oh man, like, oh dang, I did all that, it's over now. I gotta do So it's been interesting though, like to literally not having anything to do right now. And been playing a lot of video games, and
Yep, me too. I just acquired a PlayStation 4 myself, actually Saturday. So
that's my main
go up in the world.
Yeah, that's my main go-to. I actually have the PS4 and Xbox and the Nintendo Switch. So I'm a little bit of a gamer.
Boy.
But to be fair, the Xbox and the Switch were both gifts to me. So
there you go. See,
and mine too. Myself.
I had a friend that upgraded. He said he got an upgraded, PS4. I don't know what that means exactly, but he's like, I'm just going to donate it. Do you want it? And I was like, yeah.
Oh, nice. He probably got the Pro, which is like, it has like the HD graphics and has like more memory on it. So, but I mean, it's essentially that's what the newer one is right now. But then the PS5 is coming out.
Right, I know. I heard that.
In a few months, like later this year, and I'm definitely getting that.
Yeah. I probably won't, but
well,
I was thinking about it. See, I was like waiting for the PS5 because it seemed silly to get the PS4 when the PS5 was coming out.
Sure, but I mean, but I have a lot of time on my hands, Shane.
Yes.
I do.
Good for you.
I got the VR, the PlayStation VR.
Oh, cool.
Was on major sale last year, like Christmas time, and I got that as a gift for myself, and I think that's just amazing. I mean, it's so cool to play. There's so much cool stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've yet to really try like the true VR, but the same guy that I was talking about, he has the VR as well. I just haven't tried it yet, so gotta jump in there. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Well, dude, let's throw it back. Let's go back in time and throw it back to childhood and learn a little bit more about you. we'll start off and
need more wine.
Yes, we'll fill up. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to ask the questions, and you can think about it as you go, all right?
All right.
So, thinking about childhood is really where we're at. And what was your childhood like? What was your experience growing up, little Elliott growing up?
Oh, man. Well, like I said earlier, I was born in Canada. My mom and dad are both from Sullivan and Terre Haute. My dad's from Sullivan area. My mom's from Terre Haute. And my sister was born in '82. And I think like a couple years after that, they moved up to Canada. My dad had a job up there, a really great job offer. So couldn't turn it down. They moved up to Canada. And I mean, Brampton is not that far away from America or from the States.
Yeah.
Not that far away from Michigan.
It's sort of close to Toronto, right?
Yeah. It's like it's essentially like the Toronto metropolis area.
Right.
So I don't remember anything from it because they moved back to Sullivan. I think I was like 2.5 years old maybe. But moved back to Sullivan. Then I was raised in Sullivan from there on. And I don't know. I think I was a quiet child. That's what I was told a lot. I was quiet and I studied things a lot, which I still do. It's hard for me to keep my eyes focused on something, especially whenever I'm like if you were here in front of me talking to me, I wouldn't really be looking you in the eye that much. I'd just kind of. And
I'd probably be the same way, but I'm trying really hard to do so.
Yeah, that's just how I've always been. I've just always kind of looked at other things, and I can tell you how many corners are in a room or something because I've just been spending time wandering around. But, still listening, and I think that's how I was growing up. And then at some point, I got rambunctious at in junior high, I guess like a lot of kids do, and I started acting out, I think, trying to get attention and I never was in any major trouble or anything like that, but just being kind of obnoxious and just like all over the place and feisty. And so then when I got into high school, then I, really started to just kind of be like, like I said, nothing crazy, troubled child or anything like that, but I was just like blah, all over the place. And I started playing music, teaching myself how to play guitar whenever I was in 8th grade. And so that's really what kind of that's where my focus was. And to throw it back, I guess to let's see, the mid 90s. I think 1995 was whenever my parents bought the Sherman House there on the square, Sullivan, and my dad fixed it up, restored it. Well, both my parents did, and put so much work into it, and then had its grand reopening, and they had so many really cool artists come through there, and I was exposed to all of this music early on, and I thought it was cool to see all these really awesome people, and even though by those standards, as a young kid, you would think that you wouldn't be into that kind of music a lot of times because it's so old. It's like from my parents' time, a lot of it. But I appreciated it, and I knew those songs because I listened to the radio with my parents, and kind of had the classic rock from my mom and kind of the 50s and 60s from my dad kind of stuff, and the gospel. And
cool.
They had some of the most amazing people, like the Lovin' Spoonful. They had them twice, and I don't know if you know who the Lovin' Spoonful is, but if I tell you the song "Do You Believe in Magic," You know?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
That's and Summer in the City, Hot Town, Summer in the City.
Yeah.
And gosh, they had so many other ones.
Yeah.
But twice at that little theater in Sullivan. And
that's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I ran the coat room. So in the in the cold months, I had a little like half door in a coat room and hand over a little dot with a number on it, and then they come back to me after the show and give me their dot, and I give them their coat, and they leave me a little tip, and I was awesome. Good money doing that. So
heck yeah.
So that was really cool. I did that for I did that. They had the theater for a few years and eventually sold it to Crossroads, right. Which I think is just, you know, one of the coolest things that could have happened from, you know, my dad and my mom and dad, you know, they poured out their heart and soul into that place, especially my dad. That was his, you know, his dream was to see that place up, you know, functioning again as a nice, classy theater with entertainment and people having a good time. And, you know, that's what he did. He turned that place from rubble back into, you know, where it could be walked in and, you know, enjoyed and people had a good time. You know, there were so many just, you know, so many great people that came and experienced the theater, and the musicians themselves loved it. They had J.D. Sumner and the Stamps, and J.D. Sumner and the Stamps were Elvis's backup singers. And,
oh, wow, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, J.D. Sumner,
learning all sorts of new things today.
Yeah, and J.D. Sumner was one of Elvis's best friends, and to have them at the theater, I'm not sure if they had them. They had them at least once before J.D. passed away, and the rest of somebody from the group asked my parents if they still wanted them to come and play. And my parents said, well, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
and,
why not?
Yeah. So what they did was they had a backing track of JD, and he had like really, really low, deep bass voice, and had the backing track of him singing all of these songs, and then just had a little stool with a rose on it. And so they performed their set without him there, but, you know, it was like he was there. So
yeah, that's cool.
Really, really cool things like that. I mean,
well, and the Crossroads, you know, the Sherman Building, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Sherman House, Sherman Building.
Sherman House. It's a beautiful place. I mean,
they've done so much more to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Like the gold accents, dude. I remember when the third floor wasn't finished, so I can only imagine how the rest of it was. You know, I used to, man, we had. So I don't know how familiar you are with like how I even ended up in Sullivan or whatnot, but it's my family, my father and my mother's relationship with Eddie and Diane over the years. So my dad was a pastor for 18 years, and so Eddie and him were like good friends. When my dad left the ministry,
I know it. I didn't know that you were his son.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So when Eddie left the ministry, or when my dad left the ministry, Eddie was one of the few people that kind of reached out to my dad. And that's the reason we came there, is because of that friendship. And it was like one of the only people that had his back and kind of supported us in that hard time, that transition. And so my family moved to Sullivan, Indiana, and the rest is history. So yeah, my family, the only reason I know you or we're talking is because of that relationship. And so many weird connections, like thinking about that and how your family was, you know, instrumental, I guess, in Crossroads. So
I've always known that the McNeelys, like, I didn't know that it was your family.
Yeah, David and Diane. So
yeah, wow. Yeah, and my parents go, you know, they still go to Crossroads. I mean, obviously right now it's they're not meeting in person, but they love it. And yeah, the whole Crossroads community has definitely helped keep that building up. And like I said, to get back to it, it's like my dad did this thing, like had this dream and everything, and for it to end up in the hands of God is just, you know, what other blessing would you want from the fruits of your labor, and for them to still be enjoying the church, you know, it's not just like any church; it's a really, really fun place to be, and
yeah, it's a rich environment.
Anybody's
welcome. So exactly. Anybody's welcome. Anybody's welcome. And I think that's one of the beauties. I mean, that's kind of the beautiful thing about, you know, part of my story, you know, with even coming there. It's like, in so many ways, you know, the Christian community kind of like turned their head against my family, you know, and Eddie was one that welcomed us in. And, you know, anybody that knows Eddie and Diane, and Steve and Stacy, and, you know, those were long friends of ours as well. We knew, you know, Steve and Stacy. My parents, I think, knew Stacy, like Josh and Stacy, when they were like tiny kids, you know. So it's just kind of cool to see that and see how, you know, those. You're right. I mean, they're just so welcoming and such a good place, good hearts, and
yeah. And well, we both had. I mean, at least I had Stacy in school, and she was amazing.
Yeah, she's awesome. Like, it was always kind of weird because I always knew her as Stacy, you know. So it's like one of those like friendships where you're like, Mrs.
Mrs.
Hollis.
Hello, friend.
Hello, Mrs. Hollis. I'm gonna go hang out with your husband later today. You know.
Yeah.
So,
that's great. I'm glad that's a really cool connection. Glad you.
That is cool. Yeah. I was thinking about that. I can't remember. Like, I know I can remember your mom. I don't think I remember. I mean, maybe if I saw a picture, I'm sure I would remember your dad. But I don't remember your dad. But I remember, I think our moms were, you know, they knew each other and maybe were friends as well in some capacity.
Yeah, sure.
Small town, so I'm sure.
And my mom did a lot of. She did a lot of substitute teaching. Whenever
that's right.
You and I were younger in high school.
Yeah, I remember that.
And she did remediation teaching for the kids that needed help passing the iStep again. You know.
Okay. Yeah. I remember her. I just I couldn't remember all the different reasons why or places that I had kind of put her in there. But that's really cool. Do you remember when you were a child, or like, I know you said, you know, I know you mentioned that you started playing music in middle school, but do you remember do you remember any, like, do you have any like connections to music, or, you know, that as a child, like growing up, or any stories related around music and where you are now?
I'd say that the Sherman House thing was really the beginning of it, because that's when I was 9 and 10 years old. And
very influential.
Yeah, but before that, my dad was always singing in church, and actually both my mom and dad were in the choir whenever we went to First Christian Church whenever I was younger, and my dad was in a quartet there, and just has a really awesome bass voice, and I think that's really my first memory is of my dad singing. And my sister started playing saxophone, I think, in middle school. So I think that was probably also another exposure. And
saxophone.
Yeah, that's right. You played sax too. I remember that.
But like a hot second.
Yeah, my dad played whenever he was younger, and so whenever I got into junior high, 6th grade to be specific, I started playing trumpet. So I played trumpet through, I think, sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
And you know, it was
kind of like we were in the band together.
Yeah, no, I mean, now when you said saxophone, I can remember you holding the saxophone.
Yeah, that's all I was doing, is just holding it.
Exactly.
But seriously, probably more often than not, I was
hitting
like,
buttons. Is this how you play a saxophone? Oh man, I'm on my girlfriend's computer and it keeps having pop-ups going on here.
Oh, you're good. No worries.
But yeah, the trumpet, like that's where I learned how to read music finally, which was so much fun. Learning how to actually read music in those early years. And we always had a piano whenever I was growing up. It was like an electric clavinova that my sister, I think when she was younger, she was taking lessons and then kind of got over it. But, you know, every once in a while I'd try to noodle around on the keyboard and things like that. But eventually, like, I think it was like 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade is when I started playing bass guitar. It was actually my sister asked for a guitar for Christmas, and my dad got her an acoustic guitar. and I asked for a bass guitar. And so
Nice.
I don't know why I was so fascinated with the bass. I thought it was just really cool. It's just like, oh yeah, 4 strings and they're low and you look kind of cool playing it, you know? And so, you know, got the bass and I kind of, I learned like every Blink-182 song there was and with it. And that's how I learned my rhythm and my, like, you know, pretty much those early, like, easy chords, just the 3 chords that, you know, whatever. And on a bass, you're only hitting the one note with them, you know, on these Blink-182 songs.
Yeah.
So I really learned like the strong roots of like the pop music that I was listening to, like how it starts down here, comes up here, goes back up and goes back down, you know?
Yeah.
It was just kind of fascinating to me be able to do that. But I was also, I was working whenever I was young. I mean, like, I started working at an airplane and crop dusting business, or airplane restoration, repair, and crop dusting business. Because we grew up, my parents still live by the airport. So that's where I grew up, by the Sullivan Airport. And next to there was a business that I had grown up with them, and they eventually moved down to Oaktown, the Huddlestons, and so I worked for them from the time I was like 8th grade through the end of my senior year, like summer after my senior year of high school. And that was some really, really tough labor, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I bet.
Tough. And I was doing like 8 to 5 or 8 to 6, 8 to 7 every day of the summer. Well, like Monday through Friday, most of the time Saturdays, every day of every summer that I was younger. And
that's cool.
In a lot of ways, no, it's not cool, Shane.
Hey, it's cool. You made, I mean, I was pushing a lawnmower around, so.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, it was, man, it was so tough. But for whatever reason, I stuck it out. I never really complained that much. I mean, I probably complained to myself a lot, but, you know, I do owe a lot of resilience to having that kind of job whenever I was growing up, because I was making money, so that was good. I wasn't making as much as I should have for doing the shit that I was doing. Excuse my language.
You're good.
But it was that hard work and everything, and then being able to go home at the end of the day and buy a guitar that I paid for myself. You know,
does that feel good?
Music related. So I was buying all these weird instruments and things over those years, and learning how to play them and teaching myself, and responsibility
and saving, and, you know, I mean, there's so many different life lessons, and I'm the same way. I mean, I started, you know, about the same time. I mean, we moved to Sullivan 7th grade, going into 7th grade. So you'd have been an 8th grader, I believe. So that was my first year in Sullivan, and, you know, 7th, 8th grade, I was pushing a lawnmower around. My dad started working at, I think, Century 21 there, and then, you know, I just helped mowed some of their lawns that they had, you know. And then I started working when I got a little bit older. I started working in the tropical snow over there.
Oh, the tea snow.
Yeah, with that group. So that's funny. Cool. I mean, yeah, it's part of life. I mean, I don't know. I think they teach you lessons like those different jobs you have and your experience growing up, you know, I mean, seriously, think about the memories that you have and think about how those things have influenced you, maybe subtly, but they've influenced you, you know. I mean, from knowing about the relationship with some of the different artists that have came in, from, you know, Elvis's backup singers to, you know, whatever it is. And that's so cool. I mean, it feels important. It feels like you're part of something. And I think those pieces, and even, you know, your current situation with South by Southwest, like working for South by Southwest, when you go through events and you go through hard things, like, man, it binds you together. It makes you, I don't know, there's something you can't take away and nobody will ever understand or quite really feel or have the same emotions around some of those different things as you do. And I think that's unique and definitely makes us who we are today. That's for sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions, and I haven't asked it yet, but what did you want to be when you grew up?
Firefighter.
Yes. I love that. That's like one of my favorite questions because you get some of the greatest answers. Firefighter, I've had dump truck, I've had CIA, I've had it all. So that's awesome. Firefighter. That was
the first thing that I drew in kindergarten. Whenever they asked that question, I drew a firefighter, and I think it was just because I couldn't think of anything else. But then I started to think. I was like, man, that's really cool. And even like to this day, I am in love with the Chicago Fire and Chicago PD and Chicago Med series on NBC.
Not funny.
Watch those like all the time. I love fire dramas. I mean,
nice.
It just fascinates me, and I mean, and even though a lot of that stuff is dramatized and kind of thrown up in the air, there, like, just imagine going into a burning building, looking for, like, I mean,
imagine. It's terrifying.
It's terrifying and they don't get paid enough to do it. No. Some people volunteered to do that and paid. Like, to me, it's like, that's really, like, it's admirable to have people like that, man.
Totally.
You like going in and looking for a child or looking for somebody's grandma or something and not knowing where they are and, not knowing if you're going to make it back out. And it to me is just, it's unfathomable. And I mean, especially just, being around like fires, like there was a big fire in my apartment complex a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Like last year or something. Just like, to me, it's like, what the heck? Like, how do you get through that?
I have no idea. It's they deserve a lot of respect. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Let's move into that adolescent times, kind of thinking about middle school, high school. We've touched on it a little bit. Middle school specifically, what kind of student were you like in the middle school, high school times?
So what kind of student? Like
academically.
I'd say that's where I started to get a little more, I started to be a little more average in terms of like math. Like whenever I was growing up, like grade school and everything, I was in like these like gifted and talented classes and like better reading groups and stuff like that. And
what happened to us?
Yeah, exactly. So
we grow up and then we're like, nah, we're good.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the thing, my struggle was the math, the kind of that like logical stuff. Whenever I was like, in English and anything like writing skills or anything like that, I was always great. That was where I thrived. And even like history and stuff like that, if it was something that made sense to me, if it was presented well to me, then I really latched onto it. But gosh, man, I had some stinkers of math teachers, and I won't name their names, but
we probably both had the same one. So.
Man, we probably did. And I'm telling you, I failed one of the math classes in high school, and that was the only class that I ever failed in high school. And I'm just like, who fails a kid in high school who's actually like trying?
Was it a male?
Well, actually, now that you bring it up, I may have failed 2 classes. So one's a male and one's a female.
I've told this a couple times on the podcast, but I didn't pass algebra 2.
Same here.
But
geometry and algebra 2.
But he passed me.
Who they were.
He passed me because I had a tutor. I got a tutor, and I was like putting in the effort. Like my mom was involved. It was like sports. Was always my big thing in high school, and so I was putting forth the effort. I would come in and talk to him. I would like have a conversation with him. So I got a D- for effort, but I didn't pass the class. I think
that so I know who you're talking about 100%.
Yeah.
And
same guy.
Yeah, same guy for sure.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Just very like,
his class.
very math teacher.
Yeah.
Just very
a
like
little dry.
Numbers. That's not the right number.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what happened. I think I got a D- from him, but I failed geometry. I was a female. And same thing. I had tutoring, right? And I was doing I was going through all this effort, everything, and I didn't get anything like that. There was no sympathy at all for that.
Yeah.
She was just like,
Nope,
I hate my life and I hate you. Bye.
See, I had the other teacher. I didn't have her. I had O'Brien, I think is his name. I didn't do well in that class either, but I had
O'Brien to make up for that for failing that. And
he's good.
He's amazing. He was such a cool dude.
Yeah. I think I'm friends with him on Facebook now, which is kind of weird to be friends with your teacher. You know?
Well, he was so awesome, and he was an honest dude. Like, he actually worked at Pizza Hut on the weekends, like to make.
I didn't know that. Nice.
Like the Pizza Hut in Linton. Like,
nice.
Just such a genuine guy, and he really cared. And
yeah, I think he did.
Shout out to him because he helped me pass.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien, I believe. Yeah, thanks. I know you. You know, it's funny because we've established that you were in band and I was in band. So usually one of my questions is like, were you involved in any extracurriculars, any sports or anything like that? But band was one for sure. Were you in any other extracurriculars throughout middle school, high school?
Yeah. So I did. Well, I was always in Golden Arrow Singers.
That's right.
Yeah. I think I was the first freshman that was allowed in Golden Arrow Singers because you had to be a sophomore to be eligible, and I think like they needed somebody, and they were like, well, there's this freshman that can kind of sing, so yeah, so that was fun, you know.
Yeah,
and Rudy Nichols, he was so cool, man. Like just great working with us and in the music and trying to think. I played tennis from 8th grade.
I was thinking tennis. I had that one. That was what I was thinking. But
tennis,
I remember.
Can't remember if I played in 7th grade. I don't think I did, but definitely like 8th grade through my senior year. I mostly played doubles, and I think I ended up lettering like junior or senior year and
cool.
Whatever. I played football in 8th grade, and around the time I was teaching myself to play guitar, like I was playing football and I broke my finger, and I said to myself, I was like, well, I really like music a lot more than getting thrown around.
So I'm done.
Like, you know, it's like I love football. I love watching football, everything.
Same.
But I'm not built for it, especially at that time either. I mean, like, because I was skinnier back then. I mean, like, I could run and stuff, but I was not really coordinated at football. I think it was all the pads and everything.
Sure.
But I played a lot of baseball whenever I was younger. That was my first sport, from minor league all the way up to Babe Ruth, I think was the old league or whatever, like 8th grade or something, just before high school, basically. So I didn't play in high school, and pretty much for high school it was tennis and band and Golden Arrow Singers.
You were in what's it called, theater, weren't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, we did the.
I couldn't remember. I remember you being there. I can almost see you on stage, but I don't remember what the play was you guys did or anything.
I was a Frenchman. I had a small part. I had a beret and like, you know.
Yeah, that's why I could think of it.
Black stripe and like a cigarette.
Yeah.
And it was the play was called Trial and Error or Trial and Errors, and Zach was the judge, and Bill Pearson was the bailiff, and Evan was in there somewhere, and there were a lot of us in there, and there were like a full like bunch of jury, so like a bunch of people up there. But I was like some witness, like French guy. I was a witness, and I came in and and like I was all creepy and stuff, and I actually like got like an award for like stole the show or whatever.
Nice, nice, that's awesome. Yeah, ours was Murder Runs in the Family.
Oh,
was ours, like a murder mystery, like what is it, Knives Out?
I have not seen that. I want to.
Very similar to that though. It was like the theme, like this clunk, but it was like kind of the opposite, like this clunky detective, and I was the clunky detective trying to like figure things out. And dude, funniest memory from that was opening night. There was one part, and I don't know how it got switched, but I don't know if it was that somebody said the line that they weren't supposed to say, and I just said the line that follows that, but we skipped a whole big bunch, like, portion, and nobody knew how to get it back on track.
I love it.
So I'm up there, like, pacing back and forth. Like, it fits my role because I'm trying to, like, solve and, like, figure it out, but I have no idea how to get things back on track. And all of a sudden, like, something happened and we just went with it. And like, I don't know, it was one of, I remember just like bawling afterwards. Like nobody knew it. Everybody in the audience like had no idea, but I was just like terrified. I was like, oh my God, it's like your nightmare, right? Like I have no idea if we're going to finish this or not. Like Stacy said that's the first time she's ever been sitting up in the booth and being like, we're not going to finish it. It's not going to happen. Like, what do I do? You know?
We're done.
Oh, man. Nightmare.
Well, I mean, like, but isn't it funny like that? Like how whenever you're like on stage or doing something, like, you know, presenting something or performing something, you make the smallest mistake from the outside perspective, but for yourself, it could be like ruining for you, and nobody can be, you know, like,
yeah,
wiser.
You only knew. This whole thing, you know, the CrazyFaceUno podcast is that way. I mean, I'm my own worst critic for sure. I mean, I have no idea what other people's perspective is, but man, I have high standards and expectations, so I don't know. Yeah, that's cool. I forgot about some of that stuff for sure. When you look at, you know, growing up, you had a sister, you said. Was it just you and your sister?
Yep.
So you, your sister, your mom and dad. How was your guys' relationship growing up as a family?
I mean, you know, pretty typical. We're out in the country, Sullivan. Well, I mean, country-ish. We're outside of the city limits in Sullivan.
Yeah.
So growing up, it was interesting to not be necessarily like around other friends that I went to school with, like outside of school. Like, you know, other kids that lived in town. So I felt like whenever I was younger, there was kind of that little struggle. So just kind of had to come up with stuff to keep myself entertained, you know, teaching myself how to play music, things like that. My sister and I would play, but I mean, like, we would also fight. Like, she's about 4.5, 5 years older than me. She would beat up on me. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. And because I'm a sweet kid too, I didn't fight back. But you know, like it was just like, yeah, we you know, we just kind of made do. And I mean, we were, you know, pretty comfortable financially, and you know, thankfully never had to really worry about things like that. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting. It's like like everybody has tough times.
Don't know any different because it's the only thing you had to you know, compare it to in some ways, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's not to say we didn't have tough times, but I mean,
of course,
family. You know, being blessed, you know, we got through it. But you know, I think the relationships between family members are always interesting because you can learn a lot. It can a lot can stay with you. You know, there's a lot of stuff from my childhood that I you know, will just have with me, and I'm not saying that it's like terrible things, but it's things that'll you know, maybe make me a little bit different from the next person here and there. But I'd say the main thing overall was it was always faith in God, faith in Jesus, and you know, not being overly judgmental to other people.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Like, my family, I feel like we're some humble people, the four of us. And I mean, you know, my mom had cancer whenever I was young in high school, I think I was a sophomore, maybe freshman. And so during that time, my sister was in college, away at college, Purdue, and my dad was working on the road with his job at that time. He always traveled. And so I took care of my mom going through chemotherapy and going through things like that. And a lot of that really, really kind of helped, hit things home for me, how important my family is. And especially the three of them, my sister and my mom and dad, because we have been there the whole time. I mean, came like from Canada. I mean, why did I come from Canada? And great to have really good aunts and uncles and cousins, especially, and most of them in the area. But yeah, I'd say growing up like anybody else, we had some tough times emotionally. My dad and I would clash a lot of times.
Sure.
But I think that's kind of a common thing. The dad wants the son to, do these things that he knows is actually better for the son, and the son sometimes doesn't recognize that. But it's not just always the father and son. You can say the same thing to one of your friends.
Yeah.
I've had friends that I'm just like, I would love to tell them that they are doing something so absolutely wrong because I can see it and I've been through it.
Yeah.
I just know that I can't say it because it's
right. You have to be there. You have to support them and to love them and have their back throughout all of it. I mean, I think that's really important. It's that unconditional, love in so many ways that, I don't know. Yeah. I mean,
the ragamuffin gospel.
Exactly. Yeah. Have you read that book?
I haven't read the book.
It's not the easiest to read. It's harder to get into, at least whenever I was reading it. I haven't read the
one by Brennan Manning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. I've considered reading it because the thing to me is that, like, I saw, his original, kind of ragamuffin speech or whatever. And I think he's a little more old school in his roots. But what he was saying was phenomenal. So my best take from the ragamuffin thing is Rich Mullins, the musician, singer of composer of all these amazing songs that people don't know who he is, but like he lived that life, like, and I think that his way of kind of retelling it was just so much more modern and so much, closer to home. Yeah.
It's cool to hear. I know that hear your take or your perspective, I guess, on your faith and on, Christianity in general. I feel like that's very much what me and my friends in college, especially, kind of prescribe to and subscribe to, I guess, ourselves, and kind of living that out, and the red letters of Jesus, being important. And, honestly, and I've said it on the podcast a few times now, but I don't call myself a Christian anymore. And it has nothing to do with what you're talking about and the love of people and that the red letters of Jesus. I think that those have a very strong place in this world and in my life as well. I owe a lot of my values and a lot of my character and a lot of who I am to my faith in the past, and I just have different views now. I was a youth ministry major growing up, in college, and I reached the point that I just decided that wasn't necessarily. It took time, and it's been a process, I guess, for me of kind of, I don't know, breaking down and figuring out who I am and what I believe and what I want. But I tell you what, there's nothing, it doesn't mean that there isn't value or truths to be had, throughout those different, I guess within the Christian faith and within what we're talking about, you know, and
Yeah,
I have value in it as well. And
the problem is that humans have destroyed Christianity.
that,
I mean, it's such a stigma, and you know, such a bad term now to even say Christianity, and it's even worse of a term to say religion, you know, and that's why a lot of times I say faith. I do consider myself a diehard Christian, but what I'm diehard about is not, you know, bastardizing this, the whole reason behind it. The reason it started is because it was about loving people who need to be loved. It wasn't about patting somebody on the back and just kind of, you know, like, oh, we did this great today. Oh, we'll do this great tomorrow. It's you do your best to love everybody, and to find yourself, you know, using your skills to talk to people. And I mean, I've talked to so many like homeless people in Austin. It's unreal to me. Like how many people will just pass them by. Yeah. And like, you know, I've seen people spit on somebody before. I mean, it is just unreal to me. That's a human being. Yeah. And in a lot of cases in Austin, yeah, there's people that pretend to be homeless, but when you see a real homeless person, you know it. And and to me, they need love, and just like anybody else, it's just you're the I don't know. To me, it's weird. The people that are preaching on TV to get money and things like that. Mega churches, giant,
literally selling snake oil to people, saying that it's gonna like
people that have
cure them from COVID. Like, come on, there's a special place in hell for you if you believe that.
Like big steel, like you know, weird signal, like symbols behind them. Like that's some false prophet stuff. Yeah, it's weird. And they're preaching in the name of God, and the thing that happens is people take that as the face value. They take that as what Christianity is. They're thinking that, oh, like, well, they're Christian, then they must hate gay people, hate this and that, love guns, this, you know. And to me, that's the saddest part, is because you can look at other sides of it, and people aren't so quick to judge. It's just Christianity over the years. People have given it a bad name. I mean, like my family and I, we've left churches before because they've just been saying things that are ridiculous. We went to one time. They said for all the new people here today, we want you to put down your information, and we're going to have the church committee vote and see if we want you to come back. What the hell? Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. What kind of cult is that? Yeah. We're gonna vote and see if we want you back. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. So it's things like that, man. And that's why I like Crossroads. That's why I like those kind of, like, you know, non-denominational things where they just preach the word of Jesus, the word of Christ, and not the old things that are scary and hellfire and brimstone and all that. It's things that are going on in daily life, man, and that's all that people need to hear. And for it to just be so systematic. And I mean, I don't want to get into another part of religion, but I'm not going to, because, you know, there could be different kind of listeners that have different kind of faiths of Christianity. But there are certain denominations that really do cause the problems. So that's all I want to say. Yeah.
You know, and I'd agree with you, man. That's the thing. And just because of, you know, my beliefs or disbeliefs or whatever, it doesn't mean that I don't agree with, you know, the facts of what you're saying and the truth. And I think, you know, again, if anything, there's values and morality and just character that you get to learn how to, like, live your life to the best that you can be. And I think there's real value in some of that for sure. So
can I
thank
ask
you for sharing. I appreciate it. Yeah.
So where are you at now in terms, you say you don't call yourself a Christian. What's up? I mean, I don't mean that bad. Like literally, like what?
Yeah, no, that's cool. It was my junior year of college, I believe, was when really my faith kind of started to, I would say, unravel. And for me, I think it was a conscious thing of like just deconstructing, my faith and figuring out what I believe. One of my buddies we were actually, have you heard of The Irresistible Revolution by Shane Claiborne?
The what revolution?
Irresistible Revolution by Shane Claiborne. You should read that. You should read that book. It's a short little book. It's a quick, little easy read. It's good. And it's going to be right up your alley. A little bit on the extreme side of like loving people and being, possession, but the book itself is good. And this was the book that we were kind of talking about. And in there, he talks about God and war and all these different things. And I had a stance, my buddy had a stance, and we were talking, we were debating back and forth, which was a common thing amongst my friend groups. But he goes, I had said something, and he goes, "But why do you believe that?" And it's such a simple little phrase, right? Such a simple thing that started it all for me and really forced me. I didn't have an answer. I was like, I don't know, I don't know. But it stuck with me, and I started to think over the next, month, 2 months. And the thing that I really came back to, and the thing that I really settled on, was that's what I've always known. That's what I was taught. This is like, it wasn't what I believed. It wasn't what I thought. It was what I was just taught. It's what I was told. And so, that really started the deconstruction of some ways in my faith, and me being in the ministry, a ministry major. And I had every Bible class under the sun, right? Like Old, New Testament, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians. I took it all. Like I had all of that. I had biblical Hebrew, biblical Greek. I've had, I've had all the classes, like I've had all the training and stuff.
So can you tell me what this says on my tattoo?
No, I couldn't tell you. That's one of those classes I got another D in. Yeah, that was, I passed. C's and D's make degrees, right? So yeah, no, I couldn't tell you, but just interesting. So I had questions, I guess, and some things that I just didn't really like, or some of it for me as well is like, man, it's really, when you look at how the Bible is, how it is translated, that process is interesting as well. And there's, I don't know, it's just, I had more questions at the end of it, and I left my college fine. I didn't want anything to do with being a youth pastor, or that's what I was being trained to do. Another large part of it for me was I just didn't appreciate the authenticity. I didn't think that they were being authentic. I thought that you get this, like anybody can play music, turn it down low, turn the lights down low a little bit, and say some nice words and get you to do whatever you want to do, and I just didn't appreciate that. I was taught how to do that. I was taught how to set the mood, set the room. And I'm just not a fan of that. I don't think that's authentic and true to who and what, the Christianity is, to be completely honest. And so that's a big hang up for me. But it's a lot of things. It's a mixture of things. What I believe now, man, good question. I honestly, I think that we're more interconnected than ever. And I think that there's a specific image of God when you think of different religions and different, whatever that might be, whether it's Christianity or Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, whatever it is, Islam. Everybody has an image of God. I think that there's a higher power. Call it God if you want. That's cool. Like, I don't care what you call it, right? I think it's the same idea, same concept. We're talking about the same thing, but I don't know. I think that I take a more hippie approach, maybe. Is I just think that living things are way more interconnected than ever, and I think that that we have to take care of each other and love each other and be there for each other, just like you're saying. there isn't a whole lot of difference necessarily, I guess, of maybe what I believe and what I don't believe, you know, of what we believe. Probably more of the things I just don't believe, you know. I don't know that, you know, Jesus is the Son of God and he came back from the dead, and I don't know that I believe that. As a matter of fact, I don't think I do believe that. And so how can I call myself a Christian if I don't believe that? You know, that's fundamental to the Christian faith, in my opinion. So I'm not a Christian. I just don't believe that. It doesn't mean that I don't believe in the values and the things that are important. And I'm still going to treat people and love people and take care of them and the best that I can and try to live my best life. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I had this conversation a lot, because the minute you say you're not, generally with people that do have some sort of faith, or they usually have a lot of questions, you know. And it's funny because I feel as I get older and as I've kind of removed myself and separated myself from that I'm more at peace about it than ever. And I don't find that need to defend myself, if that makes sense. And when I was growing up in the faith and growing up in Christianity and throughout college and all this, I felt like I constantly had to like defend myself. And, you know, my wife and I have had many conversations about this, and she's like, almost the opposite now. She's like, I feel like you feel like you have to defend yourself against not believing. I'm like, I do kind of feel that way, you know, because of my background and where I am. And it's just interesting because I just really don't like, I mean, my life would be easier if I still had faith in it, you know. I mean, flat out, you know. I think that there is a value to it. I think there is value to believing in something greater than yourself. And I'm just not there. And I'm not saying it's gone forever, I guess, but it's not there now. And I'm okay with that. And letting go of my faith and letting go of the church and letting go of all of that was a really big step for me. And it took a lot of time. It took a lot of conversations. It took a lot of me accepting myself and accepting where I was and just being like, you know what, it's okay. I don't have to. And I remember the first moment I was in San Diego working at the nonprofit. I remember that first moment that I gave myself permission not to go to church. And I just said, you know what, it's okay. You don't have to go. And it was the biggest weight off my shoulders I feel like I've ever had. And I don't know, I think my perspective is different. Obviously, I grew up in the ministry. My dad was a pastor for many years, and left that. And, you know, my family continued, you know, believing in their faith. We had strong faith growing up, and obviously, you know, I chose a major that was related around that. But I don't know, for me, I'm okay. I believe, I don't know, I'm open, I'm accepting to a lot of different ideas and thoughts, and I'm very open-minded to things, and I keep an open perspective. But yeah, that's my tangent.
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. If you're going to school for something, then it's gonna blast it in your head.
A peek behind the curtain.
More than you want. And
yeah.
I don't, and where you're saying like they had you like studying how to like set the mood and stuff. Like, no, yeah. I get what you're saying. And oh my gosh, man, like, and I know like that's how a lot of it is. And that is just like, it's so beyond the point of what they should be doing.
Yeah.
And I don't go to a church. I haven't been to a church in a while.
Yeah.
And the last one that I went to, they started getting really, really weird like that. And,
yeah.
And then like the week or two after I stopped going, I started seeing this guy who was like the assistant pastor on a Ford commercial. That's here in Austin, like him and his family on a Ford truck commercial. And I'm like, okay, I know you're an actor now. It's like, you know,
yeah,
it's just mind blowing to me how people can take they can take advantage of people at their worst.
Yeah.
Make them feel like even worse, and then bring them back up. Like,
yeah,
you have your financial problems, you have your wedding problems.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring you back. Well, it's not me. I'm not bringing you back. It's not the human standing up there on the stage.
Yeah.
Nothing like that, man. It's like,
right.
That's why I have my faith, is because I have my faith in God, Jesus, in myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, and I've talked to a couple of people about how right now, like, people are freaking out because they can't go to church. How many times do you think in history it has happened where people weren't physically around, like, able to go to church, be around each other? A lot. I mean, especially like even when Jesus was alive. Like,
there's a lot of different pieces to that, and I don't need to bash it any more than it already. It's been exposed for what it is, but you know.
All I'm saying is, like, it like, as a Christian, I feel bad for people that have had such a terrible, like,
same, man. And
I've
haven't
had
even
terrible times with it. I've had some of the weirdest experiences, like whenever I was younger in church and stuff, and I always just tuned it out. It's like yeah, that's not me, but it's like I still have my own, like, little faith, like, you know.
Good for you. And I honestly, like, that's the thing. That's the beautiful thing. Like, it's interesting because I think you and I align way more than some of my other, some of the other conversations I've had with people. But there are some people that I can't be honest with, like, where I'm at, or what I believe, because it's just a debate, and I don't need a debate. Again, I don't need that, and I feel differently here. But it's interesting because I can say, if I say, like, well, I actually think that what I believe is, like, gives God more power than what you believe. I have more faith than you do, and or, like, it's cool that you believe what you do, and I'm going to believe what I believe. And I think that that's beautiful as well. And the problems and the issues that I have are when that's not okay.
Yeah.
When you feel like it's not okay, or you have to push an agenda for me, and I just don't need that. Like, it's cool. Like, it's okay that I believe what I believe. And you know what? At the end of the day, if honestly, if the Jesus that I've read about and that the Christian faith talks about is real and true and what it is, then I think that if that time comes and there is a heaven and I stand there and do all of that, like, I'm going to be okay, because I'm going to live my life in a way that's good and pure and honest. And I think that I'm going to be fine. But I don't really believe that. So at the end of the day, like, I'm in a good place. I'm happy and I'm good. I'm not trying to be an asshole to people. I'm not trying to put down the LGBTQ plus community. I think that's ridiculous. I'm not trying to tell people they're going to hell for listening to a song or
exactly.
cursing. I just don't care about that.
Like, anybody that puts down
those are rules.
Yeah, anybody that puts down somebody that's, like, how they're living right now in the name of God is not. I mean, they may call themselves a Christian, but that's not the actual belief.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Those signs and stuff, the God hates facts, those kind of.
I don't know what
like the
I don't know what that is.
Stuff. That's a bunch of actors for sure. Anyway, man, like,
I hope it's actors. I hope so, because my fear is that it's not actors. It's actually somebody believes that.
And I mean, like, for sure. That's inevitable. But that's where I'm getting back to it is, man, like, those people just have nothing to do with the way I think of faith. And unfortunately, sorry, go ahead. Like, really quick.
No, you're good.
We were saying about having to, like, defend yourself. Like, whenever I first moved to Austin, over these, like, 10 years or whatever, that's whenever I really first started experiencing people that didn't have the Christian upbringing. And so I was, the odd man out, and I have been for all these years. But I have friends that are both. I have friends that are Christian, friends that are not. And we don't argue. And that's what you were saying, is that, like, you got to find the balance. And I mean, like, I don't preach to people, but whenever somebody wants to hear what I have to say, like right now, then I will. I'll say, like, the reasons that I have for having faith in what I believe is right, and just kind of hoping that people understand that not every Christian is a bad, like, person that's out there just kind of with a pitchfork and stuff,
I know, and that's the thing, right? I mean, unfortunately, and this is what I was going to say, is that throughout, I mean, there's so many different things, right? Everything kind of has this, like, one bad apple can ruin it, you know? And I think that, you know, if there's one thing, this is maybe not as closely tied to, you know, the faith and religion and Christianity, but we have to find a way in society to find a path back, redemption, you know? We all mess up. We're all screw up, you know? And even some of the worst screw ups in the world. I mean, some of the things are just terrible and horrible and, you know, whatever. Man, we've got to find a way. We've got to find a way to, just as a society as a whole, of saying, like, you know what, like, I forgive you, you know, and let's take steps forward. And I think that's a societal thing, and it spills over into the Christian faith and into religion in general. But I don't know. That's just my own personal take.
Yeah, I don't know. We're all over the place. It's red. No, I mean not you and I. I'm saying yeah. No, like like it's either Republican or Democrat, or it's
gotta pick one,
or it's, you know, red or blue, or it's always been like one or the other, and everybody's always talking about that they would love if there's this little thing in the middle, but nobody
wants to make an effort to do it.
Yeah, there's never going to be that strong middle, because there's always going to be these extremes, and they're getting further extreme, left and right, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of like
how there's no longer, it's no longer Democrat and Republican. It's like do you
side or your side,
or do you hate guns?
Yeah.
Do you want God or do you hate God? Like,
yeah.
Do you want abortion or do you hate abortion?
Right.
Do you like gay rights or do you not? Like,
yeah. Well, it can't be. There can't be like mutually exclusive. They can't be. It's like it's not okay.
There's no way, and there never has been a way, and that's why each side gets so mad whenever they don't have their way.
So true.
Yeah, like, you can talk to anybody, whoever's a diehard Democrat or who's a diehard Republican. It's like they're always mad about something, you know?
Yep. Somebody's always, and man, so true. Dude, we've been a little all over the place. I love this conversation. We're at 2 hours, so I just want to check in with you. You good? Can we still have time, or do you need to? Okay,
good.
Cool.
I actually do need to go take a leak. I'll be right back.
All right. As we're talking and as we're listening, guys, I want to say thank you for tuning in. If you're this far, 2 hours in, man, you've heard a little bit of everything, and you've gotten a real taste, I guess, of Elliott and myself and some of our thoughts and feelings about different issues. And I hope that you enjoy that. I hope it's something that you have had a good experience with. And I'm going to play around with some of the different features here while we're waiting. I can actually just move it to one screen as well, which is pretty cool. And I can always add him back in. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Right now, hey, if you're listening, go check out. You can see down below we got the banner, crazyfaceuno.com. You can go to Thee CrazyFaceUno on Instagram. It's CrazyFaceUno on Twitter and Facebook. YouTube, you can find us on YouTube as well. Just search CrazyFaceUno. And we've got some cool, different things going on out there. If you go on our Instagram, you can find our, it's called Linktree. If you click the website, and you'll get a link to all of our different channels that we're on for the podcast, whether that's just audio, our YouTube channels on there, our Facebook page. And of course, I have to ask and I have to encourage you, but share, check all those out. I mean, a subscription, when you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or iTunes or all of those, it makes way more of a difference than you ever think it probably would for someone starting out and doing a business like this. So check it out. Go hit the like button, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button if you've got the chance. We appreciate it. Elliott's back, so we're going to keep on going. What's up?
Hello.
He's feeling better. He's ready to go. I'm surprised I've made it this long. I've drank all my water. It's done. So
enjoy yourself.
I know.
You
I have my koozie over here. I just didn't have an adult beverage today. I just decided I didn't need one. I don't know.
Well,
I probably needed one. It's been a weird day today, Elliott. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a weird day. Well, dude, I have just a couple more questions, to be completely honest, but I'm interested in, if we go backtrack a little bit, I would be interested in just finding out how, what kind of led you to your college decision and majoring in music.
Oh, I mean, just pretty much what I was saying whenever I was younger and just growing up, and especially in high school, I got more into it, and then eventually had a band. Do you remember? You remember Citus, the band that I had, and we played the.
Oh yeah.
And,
yeah, totally.
And that was with my my cousins, and that was so much fun. Yeah. And I knew I wanted to go to school for music, and the only thing that I knew that I didn't want to do was I didn't want to teach. I loved I've done one-on-one guitar lessons and things like that over the years, and that's fine, one-on-one, but a classroom setting, I just wouldn't be able to do it because my personality, I'd get so bummed out about one person.
The guy sitting there not actually playing the saxophone.
Yeah. He's humming into the saxophone. He's not even.
Come on, man.
But yeah, a portion of the kids having fun, a portion of the kids not caring, a portion of the kids hating it. So that's not something that I wanted to be pulled around with. So that's why I went into music business. I knew it was great. I'd still have a business degree because take all the economic classes, all that stuff, and then all the music things. So that's really what led me to it. I had some little letter from Berkeley Music in Massachusetts that it's just no, I mean, that's way expensive and very competitive. Yeah, there's the reason that I want to do that, and so to be honest, it was inevitable that I would go to Indiana State that had one of the they were one of the first pioneers of actual music business administration.
Cool. I didn't know that.
So
cool.
Yeah, and that's why I went into it, and going to school for music kind of makes you hate music in a lot of ways. And going to what you were saying when you went to college, what you went for, you started to hate. So
when you peek behind the curtain, of those different industries and those different things, and you get the good and the bad, you get everything, you get to see it all, and
you do it for fun, and that's what you love to do. But whenever you go in there and you start analyzing it, and you have these professors telling you that something is right or wrong, and they're not even good musicians and that kind of thing, it's that's exactly. But I made it.
You did it. You did it.
Did it.
You did it, man. You did it. Did you have any mentors or inspirations in your life, personal, people maybe you had a personal relationship that really inspired you or motivated you or encouraged you one direction or the other?
My cousin Mark Rogers, and he's my first cousin. He's actually much older than me. He's 61, I think now. So he's my mom's oldest sister's son, and so there's a lot of difference in age between my mom and her oldest sister.
Cool.
So he actually right out of high school, he started playing in Nashville. Played for a lot of really cool people, old school country musicians. Played for Tommy Cash, who's Johnny Cash's brother. Kitty Wells, who's an old school country artist. Skeeter Davis, same thing. A lot of really cool people. He played on he was on the played the Grand Ole Opry countless times, in the band.
That's cool.
For whoever he was playing for. And so he had all these really cool stories. Little Jimmy Dickens, that was the other one that he played. That was Jimmy Dickens is just like huge, and he passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
But like just the stories that he had about that, and just his tremendous ability to play guitar, and he helped me in whenever I was starting to learn, and his son, so is Mark Sr., my first cousin, and then there's Mark Jr. is my second cousin. That's his son, and he's the one that I was in the band with. Whenever we were younger, cool. He's just a few years younger than us, and then Marcus's brother John, his younger brother, eventually started playing with us in the band. But yeah, Mark Rogers was really, really awesome for me, like getting started, and then I'd say like that'd probably be like the biggest influence to me from that era, and he was also the one that got me into Rich Mullins, which Ragamuffin Gospel and everything, and kind of living your life how you're living, because you are never going to be perfect. So
right. Yeah. I love that. It's cool. Well, dude, I have 4 questions left. These are my tough questions at the end of the show, and we'll close things out. You ready? Oh,
you don't ask the tough questions at the beginning and then
I save them for the end.
It's like, we're done. 4th question, we're done. 15 minutes, we're done.
Yeah. That's right. Gotta gotta warm you up. Get you there.
2 hours of warm up, Shane. I feel bad for your wife. Oh,
she's hanging out with the dog. It's okay.
Okay.
What are you most proud of to date?
What am I most proud of?
To date, yeah.
I would say being able to be completely self-sufficient after college, being out on my own 1,000 miles away from my home. I mean, that was a big move. And, even though I, in college, needed some help, I was working, but my parents helped with my tuition. I was paying for my books and my living expenses and things like that.
Yeah.
But then during my internship, it was just kind of impossible to have like another job while I was doing a full-time internship. And so to have that support and then being completely self-sufficient ever since. I know that sounds very petty to a lot of people, but I think it's a great accomplishment for anybody, whatever time in your life, wherever you are at that time, whenever you are, you don't need anything from someone else. You don't need the insurance. You're, not paying the cell phone bill, all that stuff. It's just like, it's completely self-sufficient, and doing that, like I said, being in Texas, 1,100 miles away to be specific, 1,100 miles in Austin, and getting into this huge business, this company that they took a chance on me, and I had a great course with it, and man, a decade later, it's like, what do we do next? So I think that's just amazing, especially in the time, like I said, when they weren't really hiring people just off the bat. Like, I had to show work to
totally
be hired. And so
that's cool. What do you look forward to most in the future? I know this is maybe a shitty question right now, just with where you're at, but do you have any goals and ambitions?
I definitely want to travel more, because the way that the kind of like year cycle was working whenever I was with South by and stuff, it was like I was only able to travel certain times of the year. Yeah. And whenever I traveled, it's only just to go home, visit Indiana. Exactly. Yeah, so
I know, man. I've been there.
and so all these years, I haven't really done anything else. I've gone like a couple of other places, but all these years later, man, I want to travel because a lot of my coworkers are always going here and there and stuff, but it's like,
yeah,
I was always kind of the one that was like left in the office doing some work, but so I want to do that. I want to, go somewhere overseas maybe, and again.
Sure. Cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Do you ever think about your legacy?
I do, actually. I do. About every day. Because I am the last Usrey of my family, of my my general family. There's no my dad has two sisters, didn't have any brothers. I'm the only male out of all the cousins and everything that would carry on the Usrey name. It's me. So I feel like I've always wanted to have at least one kid, but as I get older, which is weird, like you'd think you kind of get closer to it, but as I get older, I'm just seeing more and more about how it would be tougher for that child to grow up in this time, but also that I can't even fully take care of myself all the time yet.
Yeah.
So I feel like, in some aspects, people jump into having kids and getting married too quick because they think that's what they wanted to do. I was engaged a lot of years ago, and it didn't happen. And I'm thankful that it didn't happen because I thought that's what I wanted to do, and at the time that's what I felt. But I'm glad now that that's not, because I'm not where I need to be with myself. Let alone put those kind of like uncertain genes into a child, and God knows how they grow up. Maybe they grow up like really pissed off. So that's one of the things that I always think about. I definitely always think about it. But I'm not super old yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still young. We got time.
Yeah.
It's interesting too. I think of this question came about for me, and I've been saying this a lot lately, but I'll be posting this tomorrow and Tuesday, and so 2 days ago on the 17th of May was the anniversary of the death of one of my college friends, and he took his own life. And when you have someone that goes too soon and have stuff happening like that, like you always talk about their legacy, and you always talk about how like the legacy they left behind. And I also had a professor that we went to a cemetery and we looked at the epitaphs, and it's like, what do you want on your epitaph? Like, what do you want people to remember you for? And I think it's an interesting question. It's not that you have to have thought about it. It's just that it's an interesting question to think about, and it's interesting the answers you get. And even just like yours, it's a unique question, unique answer to the question, but it's very relevant. And it's like, it's a cool perspective as well that I guess I've never really thought about that side of things to the question. So it's thank you for your answer, because I guess I've never really thought about all the different aspects of that question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Looking back in your life, what advice would you tell little Elliott?
Woo! What age? What age, little Elliott? Let's see.
Pick one. You get to pick. Whatever age you think. Doesn't matter.
Do you know that I used to be bleach blonde? It was like white whenever I was no joke.
So would that be the thing you'd want to tell them? Bleach your hair blonde.
I'd say, keep your hair blonde as hell. Now, I don't know, man. I think for me, the most things that I struggled with was knowing that I was a little bit different growing up, and just perceiving things a lot different. I took things a lot to heart. I mean, I was bullied. Like, there were like tons of bullies around whenever I was younger. I had a lot of good friends. But I mean, you know, just to take that, like, that resent that I had whenever I was younger toward things around me and just use it, you know, more for a forward focus and you know, just let it be known that that's what's happening. Oh boy, what in the world?
Are you back? It's still fuzzy. Can you? Difficulties here, sir. Technical difficulties. We talked for 2 hours and 19 minutes, and my phone can't handle it. So.
What? Is it still? If it's still recording me, I'll just keep talking. If it's. We saved the best for last.
We have got some real issues over here.
We got 2 Shanes now. I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Hey.
Oh, there he is. That was fun. That was like a.
You know?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Mm.
What?
Dramatic, because I can't hear you.
Oh, I love it. Wait, oh, do you want me to keep speaking or do you need me to? Yeah, you can't hear me.
I don't know. Whoa, what a shit show, huh? You know my help? Hey, hey, there you are.
Oh, hey.
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 I'm glad you could hear me that whole time because I certainly couldn't hear you, sir.
That was pretty good.
It's my worst nightmare, by the way, but there you go.
Hey, man, I mean, that's whenever fires happen, you put them out.
I'm just going to keep smiling through it and pretend like it didn't happen.
I think I pretty much, I can't even remember the question now, but I pretty much covered, like, essentially what I would say to, yeah, it was little Elliott, right?
Yeah. What would you say to little Elliott?
Just keep, you know, keep on keeping on. No, but, you know, I mean, like, yeah, like, stuff, like, shit gets hard. Life is tough, man.
Yeah.
People know that, you know? It's not, it's nothing new. It's like you say that, like you'll say that to younger people and like older people said it to us when we were younger. And oh my God, man, you're never gonna realize it until you're there. You can say it as much as you want. And that's why whenever we're younger, we're just kind of like eye rolling, like, oh yeah, this is the best fun I've ever had in my life. And then what is it like 4 years later that you're, you know, that you're in like a world of hell? You know,
yeah, totally. Like the real world, yeah, the real world. It
was interesting to me, like to think about going through 4 years of high school and 4 years of college, and I've been here in Austin longer than both of those times, and both of those times, like, were huge in like growing up. It's because like when you're younger, it's like that's what you have. Like high school, it's like that's where you are, man. Like you don't have anything else going on. You're just thinking about high school, people around you, what's going on in your life.
Exactly. Your responsibilities are just so much different and so much like lesser than, but it feels like the biggest thing in the world, right? At the time.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk? Gary V? No chance. He's like this, I don't know. He's a cool guy. But he has this like not shtick, but like the thing he says, one of the things he says is, you know, for you and I, we're like 30, you know, early 30s. And it's like, dude, like we've got 33, 30, I think, I don't know what I am, 32, 30, I think I'm 32, which makes sense. Yeah, less than you. But no, I was just saying like, you've got like 2 more lives to live, you know, like it's when you think of it like that, when you're like young, when you're like 20s, 30s, even 40s, like you've got a whole nother life to live of what you've already lived, you know, 33 years. Like I hope that I have much more time left in my life, you know, and it's not too soon. Like think of all the things you've accomplished to date and now give yourself another 33 years, you know, like what are you able to accomplish in 33 years starting from where you're at right now? And we're our only, like, we are the thing that holds us back. And we're the thing that keeps us from pursuing new things and pursuing other things because what society says we're older or we should have things figured out, but we got plenty of time, man. And why not pursue the things that, you know, we want to and pursue life to its fullest.
Yeah. I love that. I agree with that. And that whenever you were saying that, it makes me think of my parents and, you know, the both of them didn't really get things figured out until like their 30s because they were both married to other people before. No other kids or anything, but whenever they knew each other, you know, they were in their 30s, I think, and or at least whenever my sister was born and whenever I was born. Yeah. And the things that they did in that time, you know, they're both much older now. Like, and you know, the stuff that both of them have done and in that time, like you said, just like it makes sense to have the 2 lifetimes. Yeah, I always think that like my mid 30s are going to be my really peak performances. So 2 years to be mid 30s. So we'll see.
I know. I always thought 30, and then I always thought 23 was always my date because it's like post college, and everybody I knew that was 23 like came out of college, they had a job, and they just seemed to have it all figured out. And then I
have a friend who always said, and will till this day say, that he will never date anybody that was 23, or at least whenever he was younger, especially not now, but he would never date a 23-year-old because the 23 was such a terrible number, like a number age. The weirdest people.
It is. It's the worst. And I thought it was the best.
Jim Carrey movie, the Jim Carrey number 23 movie. Like, where the heck did that come from? It's like, stop being a funny man, and now he's obsessed with numbers.
I love it. Elliott, thank you so much for coming on the show and spending 2.5 hours talking to me. I love it. It's been a pleasure.
That means we got to do it again sometime.
Let's do it for sure. 100%. Anytime. Let's keep in touch. Okay.
All right, man.
All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Your contribution helps us share stories just like Elliott's and stories just like yours. Speaking of contributions, again, please visit us on Facebook and Instagram. There you can like and comment on our posts. If you want to go above and beyond, please share the CrazyFaceUno podcast with your friends, your family, or just random strangers on the street. We're welcome to everyone. Again, please visit crazyfaceuno.com, purchase items from our online store, or donate. Once again, your contributions help us tell more stories like Elliott's and stories just like yours. Thanks again for listening. We love you all. Peace.
Bye. How do you quote?